The NFL cut down deadline is fast approaching. Let's get ready for the week ahead and recap some big news coming out of the NFL today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Joe, it's not back to school day in our house, but I know it's back to school day for many families across America. We want to wish everyone sending their little ones off to school a happy back to school day to you.
Oh, that was a very wholesome start, Kyle Krabs.
Yeah, I had another one that was more on brand for me, but I said, you know what, then no, I know our guy Russ Brown sending his son off to freshman year.
Yes, dude, I saw that. How does Russ have a kid in high school, man?
Right, yeah.
Jeez.
So,
yeah, I can only imagine those days, man. Well, next year at this time, it's my oldest. That sounds weird. First day of kindergarten. So, pour one out for me and the missus on that day.
Well, enjoy your last year before that. Your last back to school that will make you mildly emotional, but not complete mess.
A wreck. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess speaking of emotions, some hard things are happening in the NFL this week. Every team by Tuesday at 4:00 Eastern time is responsible to get their 90-man roster down to a 53-man roster. 37 times 32. That's almost 2,000. Come on. Why would I even try that? What even is it, Kyle? Can you just do the math for me? What's 30?
Get my calculator out. Hold on.
Please. My math teacher in high school said I would not always have access to a calculator. And boy, oh boy. Let me tell you what, they were wrong about that. So what the heck is 32 times 37?
32 times 37 is 1,184.
That many players.
You were only off by about twice.
I didn't. In my defense, I didn't even finish the sentence, so it doesn't count. Never happened.
I beg to differ, but that's fine. It's totally
over 1,100 players are going to be released, and a handful have already trickled through to start off. Coming out of the preseason, but I think we start by just acknowledging that it's difficult. The human side of this is hard. It is a business. There is a numbers game ahead, but a lot of people are going to get cut, but also a lot of dreams are going to be made true this week as well.
Sure. And I think it's important to also know like the layers that go in, and this is what we're starting with as far as like what the next few days look like for players and teams and all that kind of stuff. I know some fans of my team have questions. There's 6 players on injured reserve already, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those players you end up getting injury settlements with, and they end up going back out into the free agent market. But there's also like some strategy with injury reserve placement, both long-term and short-term, that I think is amplified a little bit more this year with some of the new rules as far as IR designated to return on cut day that would be tomorrow. So you can put up the 2 guys on IR tomorrow with the intention of them being amongst your 8 players that you're eligible to bring back off of injured reserve at some point throughout the course of the season. That used to not be a thing at all. Like if you go on IR, you were done, right?
Before the season, out for the
season. Yeah. And so the fact that you now have the opportunity to put guys on gives you an opportunity to pass a few more guys through on your active 53 roster. And then your hope is everybody else's rosters are maybe a little bit more settled, so they're not as willing to use one of their 53 spots for a young player who maybe stood out on your roster that you otherwise would have had to expose to waivers and they would have got claimed. right? Like that's part of it. But then there's also the long-term scope of, I think about Miami with Keon Smith as just an example of a player who suffered a season-ending knee injury, who's a player who maybe would have made your roster, but maybe would have not made your roster. But if you put them on injured reserve and you carry them through the season, you can also protect like young assets into 2025 by placing them on an injury reserve list as well. So there's ways in which you're going to keep more than 53, but you're not going to play more than the 53 guys that are eligible to dress type of thing.
Yeah, I think if I were to kind of summarize the whole thing, if they're on injured reserve now or they're placed on injured reserve on Monday,
they're done.
They're out for the season, or there's an injury settlement. And an injury settlement makes you immediately a free agent, or you can return to the team that you have the injury settlement with, and you can't re-sign until the settlement, the length of the settlement plays out, which is never known public, so you never know idea how long that is, plus 3 weeks. Okay, so that's the deal. If you're on injured reserve now or you're placed on Monday. If you're placed on Tuesday, I think there's a huge asterisk that everyone has to acknowledge. If you're placed on injured reserve on Tuesday, the final business day of cutdowns, you automatically count against the 8 total players that you can bring back off of injured reserve during the regular season. So you have to have a level of comfort that this player is going to return. If you wait until after a player can make the 53, and then the next day or after they can be placed in injured reserve and they could come back, of course, they have to be out for at least 4 weeks, but they don't automatically count against the amount of players you could bring back from injured reserve. So there's players that, from Matt Milano's the big name for me, where if the Bills put him on injured reserve on Tuesday, okay, I think he's coming back this year. If they put him on Wednesday, that tells me there's a level of doubt that could happen. So you feel like they made this new injured reserve rule with the intent of eliminating the situation where a guy gets cut, they wait in the parking lot, and then they come back the next day so they could sneak another guy on and put them on injured reserve, and then they re-sign that player. I'm not sure with them automatically counting against the 8 you can bring back, I'm not sure we're going to see those types of transactions completely go away.
Right, because now you're looking at midnight to 4 p.m. tomorrow. There's no guesswork, right? It's like, so for and I don't want to speak for injuries that I'm not aware of,
right?
But River Craycraft suffered some kind of shoulder injury in week 2 of the preseason. Mike McDaniel said he's going to miss some time, but we don't believe it's going to be a season-ending injury. With the numbers game that this team has, where I'm trying to do 53 cutdowns, I'm stuck at 61 players.
That's tough.
That's a player that makes a lot of sense. They know it's not a season-ending injury. Between 12 and 4, that's a player you would expect for them to put on because he'd earned the right to be on the 53.
Yeah.
He's not out for a season-ending injury. So you can use that strategic tool and then protect whether it's one of your undrafted defensive backs that have stood out to you in the preseason or whatever else. But I'm glad you made that designation because people really weren't sure all throughout the early part of preseason. They're on reserve, injured reserve now. Do they come back? Are they really done for the season? Are they statching players for long term? No, if they're put on the list now, they're done. But tomorrow from 12 a.m. to 4, that's a player that is automatically designated as one of your 8 returns. And you could do that for up to 2 players. So what happens if you put more than 2 guys on between 12 and 4 tomorrow?
Well, only 2. You can only do 2 that are
right. But
then I would say that they're out for the year, right? Like that's what that would tell me. I don't think any team's going to be in that spot though, right?
No, I don't think so either. It's just the hypotheticals of what if.
Yeah.
Because those you'll think you'll have the circuit completely closed and then somebody will find a way to get outside of it.
Right.
And you'll say, well, what do we do now?
Well, we gave you some specific examples from the Bills or Dolphins, but I'm sure your favorite team probably has their own circumstances that are very similar to that you can apply this information to. And this is year 1, so everything's a little bit new with this, and I'm curious to see how it evolves, but this is the first go-around of that, and we'll see how it plays out over the next 24 hours or so. All right, we've got some big news, some interesting news coming through across the NFL, the big extension for Creed Humphrey, a linebacker potentially on the move. We'll talk about all of that and more here on the other side of it. Be sure to stick with us. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Breaking news here on the show.
Okay.
We have a trade.
Oh, really? I don't know about this trade.
Yeah.
This is my authentic reaction.
It's a Joe Marino brand player.
Oh, wow. Who's the player?
The Jaguars are trading Travis Gibson to the Seahawks for a late round pick.
Oh, so we're just shifting around edge rushers, right? We're going to send Darrell Taylor to the Bears.
Chicago.
Travis Gibson to Seattle.
Gibson's going back to Seattle. Now who's Jacksonville going to trade for as an edge guy?
Right. Head on a swivel the coming days here.
I've had a lot of fun with some of the trade stuff that's kind of come. I know we're going to focus on a big contract extension for a market reset at center, and we're going to talk about a potential trade of a really good player who made sure that he emphasized publicly that he didn't ask for a trade.
Right. It's interesting, right? Right. Super interesting.
So we'll start with Creed Humphrey first, getting a 4-year, $72 million contract extension from the Kansas City Chiefs.
$18 million APY. That's a big reset. Frank Ragnow was the highest paid center at $13.5 million.
And it was Kelsey before he retired. Was just over 14.
Yeah. So just over 14. Ragnow was the current leader in the clubhouse, and now it's Creed Humphrey, which we expected for there to be a reset. This is a
Joey
nice
has 3 bad snaps a year, Joe.
Okay.
The fans of every team complain about snaps.
I enjoyed Mitch Morrison, brother. When I tell you I never thought about a snap for 4 years, I never thought about a snap for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, we'll see.
Every team complains. There's like, maybe they show up at inopportune times, but there's like enough snaps that you count on one hand that maybe were a little off the mark or low, or you roll one back because your hand just slipped on the ball, and then now the narrative is you can't snap.
Think about it, like probably at least 50 shotgun snaps a game, right?
Probably.
But it's just like, it's one of those things where the mistakes, they feel so big, right?
Everybody, doesn't matter how much ball you know. I can watch a game, see on TV that the ball didn't go to the quarterback cleanly, and that's a critique I can make.
Are you a little surprised that more punt snaps aren't dropped? That ball is humming, brother.
Yeah, it comes back.
Humming back there.
Yeah.
I had one season that – go ahead.
I was going to say there's a few things I appreciate more than a punter digging out a one-hopper like a shortstop.
Yeah.
And if it hops right in front of you too, like, that's tough. Because, like, the spin on the ball can change a little bit. And yet you don't see him skipping past guys ever.
I had one season as a punter in high school, and our long snapper he played FCS college football for 4 years as a snapper, right? He was an unbelievable snapper. I was in fear of my life every single time that I wasn't going to catch that snap. To my credit, I never didn't do it. But I thought about it. You know what I mean? Like, receivers catch drop passes that are right out in the breadbasket all the time.
Right.
Like, why is it not above a punter for that to occasionally happen? I'm very impressed with the consistency there. Anyways, Creed Humphrey, market reset, $18 million APY. Probably about the range that we expected. Great news for Tyler Linderbaum, who's probably the next big name at center.
Yep.
But also maybe not great news for Trey Smith and his endeavors to stick around long-term with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, no, that was when we did the free agency preview. We looked at, hey, Kansas City's got 3 guys in the top 10 expiring contracts next offseason. We'll see what they do. Well, they get out in front of Creed Humphrey and get that one locked in, which I think is a very wise decision. Obviously, the keystone of your offensive line, the centerpiece of it all. I would be surprised if they remain invested. Now, I think the thing that maybe works out in Trey's favor a little bit is they'll probably move on from Juwan Taylor. They're going to have a rookie or second-year left tackle, Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamaitea, two options for you at tackle. Maybe you're not paying a tackle, and maybe they can make it work. But if they do, I think that's really bad news for Nick Bolton.
Yeah.
So whatever shoe drops, if there is one, I think will be very telling for the third one of those three guys.
Yeah. And one of the funs might not be the right word. One of the interesting things in seeing the reaction to the Creed Humphrey deal was all of the fan bases that were upset that their team didn't draft Creed Humphrey in the second round. And you and I can unite over this. 2 picks before Creed Humphrey was selected, Boogie Basham became a member of the Buffalo Bills. So that was really awesome after they drafted Greg Rousseau in the first round. And then you guys
don't say his name. He's like Beetlejuice. He's gonna pop up.
Beetlejuice to the Dolphins. Jackson Carman, who was just released by the Bengals, right, was the friggin' was he a top 50? He was 46th pick in the draft.
Yes, he was.
So there's a lot, and so that prompted me to look at the second round in was it 2021? It
was a good class.
Yeah, but it wasn't a good second round. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of teams that shouldn't have picked Creed Humphrey. Like even the Chiefs passed him over. They picked Bolton before they picked Humphrey.
So I guess my biggest question is, why did Creed drop like that?
Kyle, you speak concerning mysteries. I'm
It's
old enough to remember mocking Creed Humphrey in the top 10 and getting some resistance on that.
Like the Packers went with Josh Myers the pick before.
Right. What is it? This is what it is. Are you ready for the most ridiculous thing in the world? He's left-handed.
It probably is it.
That's what I promise you. That's what it is. He's left-handed snapper.
So you turn your hand over and
we've worked with a lot of NFL people throughout the years, and we've done some film stuff. Every time it's a left-handed, they bring that up every time.
Yeah,
that's why he fell. His tape wasn't the tape, wasn't the size, wasn't the athleticism, wasn't the pedigree.
Right. Well, then shame on you, right? I mean, from an offensive line standpoint, you had some hits. I actually think the first probably 15 picks of the second round that class had some good players like Tyson Campbell, Javon Holland, Landon Dickerson, who can play center, by the way.
Right.
Tevin Jenkins. But then, this is what happens when the run starts like that and you're a team that has a need and you didn't go that way in the first round. What happens? The Dolphins trade up and send a 3 to draft Liam Eichenberg. Jacksonville trades up. Did they trade up or trade down?
I think they traded. I thought they traded up for Tyson Campbell.
Well, no. I mean, they took Walker Little at 45 and then Jackson Carman went at 46.
Not great.
And Aaron Banks went at 48, and all those players involved a trade with those picks.
The Tutu Atwell and Dwayne Eskridge picks always will perplex me for the rest of my life, but those guys also went ahead.
So you had this crazy run in the first 15, 20 picks of the second round that had a bunch of teams trading and jostling around and getting into this position and drafting for need. Don't draft for need. Don't do it. Because this is how, we need a lineman, but we can't take the guy who snaps left-handed.
Right. These are the tiebreakers.
So let's take Liam Eichenberg, who, lo and behold, has gone on to play center. That's what he plays. Jackson Carman gets cut.
So congratulations to Creed Humphrey. And we'll see. The dominoes are going to be interesting here. What happens with Tooney? What happens with Taylor? What does this mean for Bolton? What does this mean for Smith? Chiefs have a tremendous luxury of their success in Patrick Mahomes, and so they don't have to sweat anything, right? They can be so selective with their personnel moves. Yeah, they're going to figure it out just fine. But you could definitely feel like Creed is part of this nucleus of what makes them great, and certainly was and should be the priority for that offensive line.
So I guess we'll set the table for segment 3, which is going to include another member of the 2021 NFL draft class, Ernest Jones, drafted 103rd overall as a compensatory selection in the 3rd round by the Rams, has become a very good player in the middle of that young Rams defense. And allegedly the Rams told him, hey, you want to find somebody else that wants to pay your next contract? We're all ears.
Go right ahead. We'll talk about that and more on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we got a little something different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook.
Hey, by the way, CeeDee going to get to camp? CeeDee going to practice?
Jamar said he needed to practice a little bit.
Jamar practiced a little bit. It seems to be a promising sign.
CeeDee's situation just compounds all the issues in Dallas.
As does another injury for them, Deron Bland.
Right.
Knee injury, right?
Yeah.
Expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. But let's talk Ernest Jones first. Very unique situation. Report came out yesterday that the Rams had informed Ernest Jones and his representation that if he and his camp wanted to pursue a trade in advance of his contract extension, a contract extension, the Rams would give him permission to do so. And then Ernest Jones came out and said, I never asked for a trade, which really makes you feel like the Rams have decided we're not going to be attached long-term to paying Ernest Jones, which is odd because he's one of the more accomplished players on a very young defense.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what makes it surprising is the youth that this team has on defense. This is your Mike linebacker. He's a good player. You drafted, you developed him. You feel like you would be part of the plan, and especially on the doorstep of the season, you're willing to make the deal, right? Like, spoiler, I'm sure we'll do predictions at some point. I have the Rams making the playoffs, and my concern is the defense. And now you're willing to potentially move on from this player, and I mean the Rams were very choosy with who they played in preseason. The linebackers that took snaps in preseason: Omar Spates, Eli Neal, Ola Kunle Fatakase, and Jake Hummel. That's it, man. Who's your best linebacker on this team?
I think they really like Roseboom.
Surely, right? And Troy Reeder probably.
Yeah, but Reeder's, he's kind of pinballed around a little bit.
Yeah,
I know he's had some successful reps. I know he's a really good special teams player, but Roseboom strikes me as the one that you kind of read between the lines that they feel they like. I mean, he played almost 600 snaps for him last year. Was a productive player.
Right.
But Ernest Jones is a really good player too.
He's your best linebacker. So whatever you think about Croatian Roseboom, that's fine. This is your best linebacker.
I agree.
This is very curious to me. And they must just be really far apart on money. And I can understand that Ernest Jones, I think, is kind of a specific type of player. Right? I don't think for the NFL that maybe prefers more of these matchup style backers, he's certainly not that. But I think that they just must be far apart on money. And we know that Les Snead operates a little bit differently as well. So,
do you know how many missed tackles he was credited with last year? Ernest Jones?
I don't know.
On what did he have? He had 145 combined tackles, 14 tackles for loss. He was credited, according to Pro Football Reference, with 2 missed tackles last year.
That's good.
His missed tackle rate in each of his 3 seasons in the NFL is 6.2, 5.8, and 1.4%.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, the good is if you're under 10%, I think that's a good missed tackle rate.
Digits, it's a good missed tackle rate, especially for a linebacker, right?
Yeah.
DBs, it's a little harder. There's more space. It's more steep angles. It's a little more challenging. But I guess the other side of that coin is from a targets in coverage perspective, 75%, 79%, and 71% of targets he's allowed for completions. And yards per completion has gone up in each of the last 3 seasons. Passer rating allowed has gone up in each of the last 3 seasons. So, yeah, he's a little bit more of a skill-specific player. But if you're one of those teams that has a seat at your table for an Elandon Roberts, if you've got a seat at your table for who's the Cincinnati kid that's in Minnesota playing with Flores?
Ivan Pace.
You got a guy like that. I think this is the top shelf version of those kinds of players.
Oh, for sure.
He should have a market, and that market should probably be. Do you have a number? Don't say it out loud. Do you have a number? Can you think of a number?
Yeah, I think I got a number.
All right. We're going to say it in the E&3 per season. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
10.
8 million. Okay.
Oh, I said 10, 8 was in my head, and I said 10 to be a little more aggressive because he felt like a 330 guy.
Well, and that's fine. If he hits the open market in free agency, maybe he gets 10 because there's a 20% surcharge for being on the open market, right?
Right.
But between $8 and $10 million per season. But if you want to say, well, we're not going to go above 5 or 5.5 or 6, and you just know that there's a fundamental divide there and you want to move on, okay. But like he should get reliable starting caliber money, in my opinion,
I agree.
as a linebacker.
I agree. I think probably 7 to 10 feels like the range that I would anticipate.
I would agree.
Okay, Deron Bland, 6 to 8 weeks, compounding problems with Dallas. And brother, we don't have replacements. It's Kalen Carson, who I think was a 5th round pick, and Andrew Booth. And those are your in-house candidates. Stephon Gilmore ain't coming back. He plays for the Vikings.
Do you think
and Diggs is coming back off an ACL, right?
Right. Can they sign Xavier Howard and move Jordan Lewis inside?
Are you willing to do that? I mean, there's a lot that comes with signing Xavier Howard in this current situation.
Yeah, of all the teams that haven't necessarily shot away from extra stuff.
Sure. Mike Zimmer's trying to figure out if Terrence Newman can still play.
Yeah. I don't know, man. So we have CeeDee hasn't reported. Now you're going to miss Deron Bland for the first at least month of the season, right? If it's 6 weeks, it's okay. 2 weeks to the regular season from when the injury happened, and then the first 4 games. You got Eric Kendricks coming in to play Mike linebacker. You got the contract standoff with Dak. You got the contract standoff with Micah. You already had a season-ending injury to Sam Williams, one of your key rotation guys on the edge. You're going to have 2 rookies starting on your offensive line, probably with Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton. I don't know, man.
That's keep in mind the last week or so, they traded for traded for Jordan Phillips and signed Linval Joseph. You could tell they're not real satisfied with some of their interior options, not to mention they signed Carl Lawson as well.
Yeah, man, it was Mozzie and Osa. And then what else did you have?
Nothing. We knew they had nothing, though.
It was Albert Huggins and Justin Rogers.
Jerry was asleep all offseason, man.
I don't know. The vibes aren't good in Dallas.
Not good.
I don't think the vibes are really good in Philly either. But, I mean, from Philly, at least from a personnel standpoint, you look at what they've done and you're like, I feel good about proof of concept with a lot of these guys.
I kind of feel like Philly's going to be okay.
I think they're going to be okay. I think they'll win double-digit games.
Right. I think 10 might win this division.
That'll probably get it done.
Yeah, 10 wins this division, I think.
So, messy spot for Dallas to find themselves in. And then we'll finish with Darrell Taylor getting sent to Chicago. I mean, how long have we talked about Chicago being another competent edge rusher away? And Darrell Taylor's a player that has his holes on his roster for sure, or holes in his game for sure. But brings a lot of juice that I think opposite Montez Sweat, you get in obvious passing situations. I really like the fit.
Yeah, DeMarcus Walker is a rotational piece there, and Austin Booker's had one heck of a preseason. So I think Taylor was the exact type of player they should have went after. And I had pegged Seattle as a team to trade an edge rusher. I was been interested in edge rushers for the Bills. And the guy that I had circled was Uchenna Nwosu, because I thought to myself, well, they've got Mafe, they've got Taylor, they've got.
Can I take a timeout?
Yeah. Derek Hall. Yeah.
I don't know that this Travis Gibson deal is a very good sign for Chenowusu, who sustained a knee injury in their preseason game.
Right, which of course happened after they traded
Darrell Taylor.
Which is why
which would just be a total gut punch for Nwosu with how good he became and then has dealt with some injuries. I think a trade to proactively go out and get a guy, you hope that's not the case, that he's not going to miss extended time. But I know Mike McDonald, last we heard, said that they were going to need to get some more information before they figure out how severe that situation was.
We'll see.
We shall see. And we will be back tomorrow to react to cuts as they happen. The personnel moves are going to be hot and heavy over the next 48 hours or so. So keep tabs with us here. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.